Hello hockey fans, and welcome to part 2 of After the Miracle. If you have somehow stumbled upon this video when you haven't watched part 1, then I suggest you go and do so before you continue this one, as everything will make a lot more sense to you moving forwards. Now that's out of the way, let's pick up right where we left off in my previous upload, and look at what the rest of the 1980 USA Olympic team has gotten up to over the last few decades. Wearing number 19, we have Erik Strobel. Having notched 3 points in 7 games during the Olympics, the 21-year-old forward would spend the rest of the 79-80 season with the AHL's Rochester Americans, where he scored 8 points in 13 games with the team. Strobel would also suit up for the Americans during the 1980 AHL playoffs, but he would suffer a broken ankle during his 3rd game of the postseason and be sidelined for the rest of the playoffs as a result. In fact, Strobel's injury would be so severe that he would never play another pro hockey game, as he was forced to retire shortly after the season had come to an end. Having called it a day on his career at just 22 years old, Strobel returned to Minnesota and became a telephone sales executive in Apple Valley. I highly doubt that he's working the exact same job in the exact same area over 40 years later, but that's the latest update I could find on him, so that's the best we're gonna get. Moving on to USA's number 20, Bob Suter. After going scoreless in 7 games during the 1980 Olympics, and being the only member of the roster to do so, the 22-year-old defenseman would spend the rest of the 79-80 season, as well as the following 80-81 season, away from the game, before joining the CHL's Nashville South Stars for the 81-82 season. However, after spending the entire year with the team, and after scoring 33 points in 79 games, Suter would hang up his skates and retire from the sport at the conclusion of the season. At least he gave pro hockey a try, right guys? Having called it a day on his career, Suter would return to his hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, where he opened up a sporting goods store called Gold Medal Sports. Not only that, Suter would coach youth hockey in his spare time, while also becoming the part owner and director of the Capitol Ice Arena in Middleton, Wisconsin. However, Suter would suffer a heart attack on September 9, 2014, and became the first member of the 1980 squad to pass away at just 57 years old. In remembrance of their late owner, the Capitol Arena was renamed to the Bob Suter's Capitol Ice Arena in his honour. It's always heartwarming to see someone immortalised like this, especially given how active Suter was within the community. Wearing the number 21, we have Mike Eruzione. Having scored 5 points in 7 games at the tournament, the 25-year-old forward and captain of the team wouldn't make the jump to the NHL. Though he had received a contract offer from the New York Rangers, and though he was drafted 28th overall by the WHA's New England Whalers in 1974, Eruzione refused to turn pro. In fact, the forward would never suit up in a single competitive hockey game ever again, as he felt that he had already accomplished all of his hockey goals, and he had reached the pinnacle of achievement by leading his country to an Olympic gold medal. Say what you want about his decision, but you can't fault him for going out on top. That said, his hockey career wasn't over just yet, as Eruzione became a technical analyst for the 1981 movie Miracle on Ice, not the Disney one, the other one, worked as a hockey television analyst for New York Rangers and New Jersey Devils games in the 80s and 90s, and commentated at 5 different Olympic games. Not only that, Eruzione would also own the ECHL's Nashville Knights for 2 seasons, spend 3 years as an assistant coach at Boston University, his alma mater, and became a part owner of the USHL's Omaha Lancers too, so it's safe to say that he still produced an impressive career in the sport, albeit off the ice. Next up, we have the team's number 23, Dave Christian. After notching 8 points in 7 games at the Olympics, the 20-year-old forward would jump to the NHL shortly after the tournament, as he joined the Winnipeg Jets, who drafted him 40th overall in 1979 for the remainder of the 79-80 season. From there, Christian would end up spending parts of 15 seasons in the NHL, scored 773 points in 1,009 games for his efforts, and was a 1991 NHL All-Star, before retiring at the conclusion of the 95-96 season, following a 2-year stint with the IHL's Minnesota Moose. Having called it a day on his career, Christian would spend the next 3 seasons as both the general manager and the head coach of the United States Hockey League's Fargo-Moorhead Ice Sharks before embarking on a career away from hockey. According to an article by stateofhockey.com back in 2016, Christian was working as a technical services engineer with Cardinal Glass Industries in Fargo, so it sounds like he found his footing in the several decades after his lengthy NHL career came to an end. Wearing number 24, we have Rob McClanahan. Having potted 8 points in 7 games at the competition, the 22-year-old forward would make the jump to the NHL directly after the Olympics, as he joined the Buffalo Sabres, who drafted him 49th overall in 1978 for the remainder of the 79-80 season. From there, McClanahan would spend parts of 4 seasons in the show and score 101 points in 224 NHL games before retiring from the sport in 1983 following a 10-game stint with the CHL's Tulsa Oilers. After hanging up his skates for good, McClanahan would pursue a career outside of hockey, as he became a financial broker in 1985. From there, the retired forward would rise through the ranks and work for a number of different firms over the next 2 decades, before joining Think Equity Partners in 2002, where he eventually became the head of trading for the company's Minneapolis office. However, McClanahan has recently found his way back into the sport, as he serves as the head coach of the Blake Schoolboys varsity hockey team, a role he has served since 2019. After all, you can take the player out of the game, but you can't take the game out of the player. Moving on to the team's number 25, Buzz Schneider. After scoring 8 points in 7 games at the Olympics, the 25-year-old forward would never make the jump to the NHL in the years after his gold medal win. Instead, Schneider would take his talents to Switzerland and play the next 2 years with SC Bern before retiring from the sport at the conclusion of the 81-82 season. Once his career had come to an end, Schneider would return to Minneapolis, where he played college hockey before the Olympics, and worked as a sales executive for a semi-trailer company. After working with the company for nearly 20 years, Schneider would leave the job in 2001 and gain a commercial real estate license. However, his career in hockey wasn't over just yet, as Schneider would return to the sport in 2008 in order to serve as the head coach and general manager of the Turkish men's national hockey team, though he only ended up coaching the team for a lone year. Well, that's one way to rejoin the sport, I guess. Wearing number 27, we have Phil Verchota. Having potted 5 points in 7 games during the tournament, the 22-year-old forward would forego signing with a team for the remainder of the 79-80 season. In fact, Verchota would never suit up in a single pro hockey game in North America, as he would spend the 80-81 season in Finland with Liiga side Jokerit, take the following 81-82 season off, and return to the USA program for the 82-83 season before retiring from the sport at the end of the year. Having hung up his skates for good, Verchota would take his talents away from the game and begin a career in banking shortly after his retirement. In fact, Verchota would rise through the ranks to become the senior vice president of First American Bank in Wilmar, Minnesota. And who said hockey players aren't successful outside of the sport? Penultimately, we have the team's number 28, John Harrington. After scoring 5 points in 7 games at the Olympics, the 22-year-old forward would join the AHL's Rochester Americans for the rest of the 79-80 season. From there, Harrington would spend the next 3 years playing for a variety of teams across the hockey world before calling it a day on his career at the conclusion of the 83-84 season, following a 10-game stint with the CHL's Colorado Flames. After retiring from the sport, Harrington would immediately try his hand at coaching, as he became an assistant coach for the University of Denver in 1984. In fact, Harrington's coaching career has been so successful that it has spanned nearly 4 decades at this point, and it continues to hold strong to this very day. Over the last 38 years, Harrington has coached a number of teams in the NCAA, has taken his talents to Switzerland and Italy, and has even served as a scout for the Colorado Avalanche too. At the time of this recording, Harrington currently serves as the head coach of Minnesota State University and is in his second year of his second tenure with the school after previously coaching the team between 2015 and 2018. Talk about a long and successful coaching career, eh, folks? And finally, wearing number 30, we have Jim Craig. Having served as the team's starting netminder during the 1980 Olympics, and having posted a 2.14 goals against average and a .915 save percentage in 7 games, the 22-year-old goalie would make the jump to the NHL shortly after his gold medal win, as he joined the Atlanta Flames, who drafted him 72nd overall in 1977 for the rest of the 79-80 season. From there, Craig would spend parts of 3 seasons in the show, post a 9-7-6 record, a 3.68 goals against average, and a .861 save percentage in 23 games during this span, and spend much of his career in the minors, before retiring from the sport at the conclusion of the 83-84 season, following a 27-game stint with the CHL's Salt Lake Golden Eagles. Once he had called it a day on his career, Craig would pursue a number of opportunities outside of the sport, as he has supposedly been employed as a motivational speaker and a spokesperson, as well as a marketing and sales strategist too. In fact, Craig is the president of Gold Medal Strategies, a Boston-based promotions and marketing firm which has provided strategic direction for employees and associates from more than 300 organisations. Sounds like he's done quite well for himself in the years after his retirement, eh, folks? So now that we've looked at all 20 players on the roster, what about the coaches that led them to their gold medal win? Well, assistant coach Craig Patrick, who played over 400 NHL games during his own playing career, has produced a long and successful front office career in the years following the 1980 Olympics. After winning the gold medal with Team USA, Patrick would join the New York Rangers and spend the next 9 years serving in a variety of roles with the team, before joining the Pittsburgh Penguins in 1989 as their general manager and executive vice president of hockey operations. From there, Patrick would spend 17 years with the organisation between 1989 and 2006, win a pair of Stanley Cup championships, and acquire several players who were integral to Pittsburgh's 2009 championship too. After spending half a decade away from the league, Patrick would join the Columbus Blue Jackets as a senior advisor in 2011 and spend parts of 3 seasons with the organisation before joining the Buffalo Sabres between 2014 and 2015. Once he had left the Sabres organisation at the conclusion of the 14-15 NHL season, Patrick would spend another 3 years away from the game before rejoining the Pittsburgh Penguins as a scout for the 18-19 season, a role he continues to serve to this very day. Now that's one hell of a front office career, folks. And finally, head coach and general manager Herb Brooks would go on to produce a long and successful coaching career in the years after his gold medal win. Not only would he work behind the bench of HC Davos, St. Cloud State University, the Utica Devils, and the 1998 French national team, Brooks would serve as a head coach for a number of NHL organisations. In fact, Brooks would coach 507 games in the show, split between 4 different teams, where he posted a 219, 222 and 66 record during that span, and made the playoffs 5 times in 7 seasons. If all of that wasn't impressive enough though, Brooks would also serve as a scout for the Pittsburgh Penguins between 1995 and 2002, and would win another Olympic medal with Team USA, as he led the men's team to silver in 2002. Sadly, Brooks would meet a tragic end shortly after his silver medal win. Though he would return to the Pittsburgh Penguins organisation and would spend the 02-03 season as the director of player personnel, Brooks was killed in a car crash in 2003 at the age of 66. Such a tragic end for such a legend within American hockey, but his impact on the sport and the legacy that he has left behind will continue to be honoured for decades after his untimely departure. Now that's how you make your mark, folks. So of the 20 members of Team USA's roster during the iconic Miracle on Ice, 15 of them had been drafted by an NHL team, while 13 of them ended up playing in the league in the seasons that followed. Not only that, of those 13 players, 5 of them would go on to play over 500 NHL games, while 3 of them played over 1,000 NHL games. While it's certainly possible that several players were only given a shot in the league due to their role in the Miracle on Ice, it sounds like the 1980 Olympic roster was full of talented hockey players. After all, a bunch of late teens and early to mid 20-year-olds somehow stole the gold medal from the Red Army team. No wonder NHL franchises snapped them up so quickly. While the majority of the roster would be drafted by an NHL organisation and suit up in the best league in the world at some point in their careers, 5 players on the team were left undrafted, while 7 players never suited up in a single game in the show. Whether they were late bloomers who found their rhythm after their draft eligibility had come and gone, they expressed little interest in making the jump to the show after the Olympics had concluded, or they wish to take their talents in a completely different direction away from hockey, I think it's important to highlight the guys who never made it, just as much as those who produced impressive NHL careers. After all, just because you didn't make it to the show, that doesn't mean that your hockey career or your life after the game was a failure. These guys did win an Olympic gold medal, you know. Whether they went on to play in the best league in the world, they were a journeyman of the sport for many years, or they left the game behind shortly after the Olympics, the 1980 USA hockey team achieved something many thought to be impossible and immortalised their names in the hockey history books forever. Sure, some of these players are more recognisable than others, and much of the roster has faded from the spotlight over the last 4 decades, but thanks to their legendary performance in February of 1980, a group of college kids somehow defeated the juggernauts of the sport and led their country to a gold medal on hockey's biggest stage. Regardless of what happened in the years that followed, that sounds like a pretty impressive achievement to me, folks. And that was what happened to the 1980 USA Olympic team after the miracle. What do you guys think about the roster's legendary performance, or each player's journey in the 4 decades that have followed? Also, do you want me to flip the script on this and look at what happened to the Red Army team after the miracle in a future video? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Clayton Hallam, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Raquel, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further, and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.